You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.
Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Sport alongside Seth, Merrow. I am Anthony Mormino as we are final weekend of, well, not for the year because they're going to come back on December 30th, but the final weekend before the short break in New York. And then Southern California, good 2-year-old race as they get ready for the opening day at Santa Anita on the 26th. So usually a quiet time of year, but yesterday in the news, my favorite group to bash, the Graded Stakes Committee, was at work. And I have to say, certainly as a Southern Californian and the West Coast bias here, they really took a pride to them, and I'm okay with almost every single one of them. As, you know, the Santa Barbara, in my adult lifetime, has gone from a grade 1 to a listed stakes race, and it is appropriate. And one of the things amongst the many arguments, Seth, on Twitter, this is my point of reference. In July, I'll be 60 years of age. 30 years ago, Seth, I take the crops of horses that would be 3, 4, and 5 years old, the thoroughbreds. I think that's the bulk of racing in a given year. So like 87, 88, 89, the foal crops were 100% larger and more so now. But my point is, there were twice as many groups of 3-year foals 30 years ago as now. So my point of reference is, I would start, not dictatorial, but my first thing would be is we should have half as many stakes races graded at each level. Now, I'm not saying draconian like this is how it's going to be, but I thought that's a sane starting point. And it would be draconian for them to get there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We have far too many graded stakes races, which is why we have 4 and 5 horse fields based on the number of horses. And I think there are people in the graded stakes community that look at me like that's a stupid idea. I go, it's not a stupid idea. You have politics involved with why you don't want to do it. But mathematically, I'm sure it stands up to scrutiny.
Rick Hammerly, who's on the committee, was on with Pick a couple of weeks ago, and he actually recognizes exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And is cognizant of that, and I think would like to go where you would put, but recognizes also it's so draconian the industry would lose their minds likely. On the high end, when the news came out, there's one upgrade. Stephen Foster gets upgraded to a grade 1. Downgraded grade 1s, the Cigar Mile, the Woodward, the Clark, the Starlet, and the Rodeo Drive. But yeah, it's...
I don't have a problem with anyone. I actually have a problem with Stephen Foster going up.
You look at social media all year long, like, look at the field size of this stake, and look at the, how horrible it is. And then the announcement comes out and the downgrades, and people are like, what? You downgraded this and this? And people are so parochial. Don't downgrade the one in my backyard.
No.
But if you're going to, all year long, look at the situation, which relates directly to the full crop size, then yeah, we have too many grade 6 races.
And I mean, I don't. Too many is we have far Too many. And I said this. This is my favorite example of how it's not my jerk in Congress that's a problem. It's your jerk in Congress that's a problem. Is a Fleet Alex's juvenile season was the year that they made the juvenile series only 2 stakes races instead of 3, and people lost their mind. And I was like, you're like 5 years late with this idea, and they only did it for 1 year. The outcry was so great, but there's clearly no need for 3 for each sex stakes races when we can't get horses starting their juvenile career in May. They're just allowance races, in my opinion. And here's something that David Grenning, that we love on the show and love in real life off the set, he was pointing out how the New York Stallion Series has so many maidens. Now, I started doing this work at Capitol in '98, and when David wrote that, or I read what David wrote, I was like, that's not really true, because I used to speak back in '98, '99 that it was always non-winners of half a race or others, because there were so many maidens in the race and the pots were so juicy, you had to run as a maiden. So that in the Stallion Series, in the edition that's the late year one, we've had plenty of maidens.
Yeah,
now,
you put up 500K in a restricted
I'm
stake.
running. If I can stand up, I'm running. I mean, so that part, but I really, part of it's also been like the Santa Barbara, for example, that I met. And I know not everybody follows it to this level, but that was part of the Santa Anita Filly and Mare turf season. They used to have 4 races. They only need 2 now. Horses don't run as often. There aren't enough horses, etc. But I really love when people lose their mind. And there was one gentleman on Twitter with whom I follow, and I think he's a small-time owner, and he's a California guy. He's like, I don't have a problem with any of these. And I was sitting there going, neither do I. I have loved the Hollywood Futurity race through all of its different names, now the La Salle that's going today, since the day it was born. It was $1 million race before the Breeders' Cup. It's a grade 3. And I have maintained for years now, Seth, years, for juveniles, the only grade 1 should be the Breeders' Cup. I mean, we're almost getting there because the Matron's gone now. The Futurity's gone now. They used to be grade 1s in New York. But I believe that. I think, I know people go crazy. There is no way the Hopeful and Spinaway should be grade 1s. These are like...
And just for context, the Matt Haggerty article
Okay.
says the number of graded stakes run in the U.S. has remained resilient despite a dramatic pullback in the number of races run at U.S. tracks. The committee assigned grades to 440 stakes races. So, I mean, you think that's better than what? That's 1 1/3 a day, something like that.
And if you take it as a 4-day race, that's 2 a day.
That's exact, yeah.
And that's where we are, folks. I mean, there's no, you saw Colonial Downs. I think they did a bad job for their product. They're going to race on the weekends. I think they were on a roll there. If you didn't hear it, Colonial Downs, which was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday track. Beautiful turf racing in the summertime. Now is going to throw their hat into the ring of the weekend cauldron. And, good luck to them. But I thought
Potentially get lost.
Yeah, I think they made a mistake there. But that's
and I
CDI.
guess for some reason the Graded Stakes Committee is still looking at the Churchill Downs folks said, if that whole weekend product and everything goes forward, they're planning to switch the Grade 1 Arlington Million, the Beverly D, and the Grade 2 Secretariat to Colonial, and they have applied to the Graded Stakes Committee to hold on to the grades, which I guess...
Now, I would be for that. I would give them 1 year to get. They would have to have legitimate grade 1 fields.
I will say, and again, I'm not a homer. I'm all for kind of changing things up too. But the Cigar Mile this year, and people looked at it and said, "Gee, this isn't like a strong addition to the cigar." And I guess I wouldn't really argue with that, except there were 3 grade 1 winners in there. You had Zandon, White Obario, and Mind Control, who was a multiple grade 1 winner going in.
And when people say that, my first thought is the famous line Sally Field has at the end of Absence of Malice. It's accurate, But it's not
Well,
really
it also
true.
it also
It's
maybe
not true.
ultimately proves the whole point
Right.
that. Yeah, I mean,
White
that's possible.
Barrio is a stiff.
That's
I
possible.
mean, it's like
That's possible,
he might
too,
be a
that-
grade 1 winner, but he did it in restricted races against other horses that are
Yeah,
no
so
good.
it-
Somebody
again,
has to win the
yeah,
race.
it may be
and here's
proving
the
the
other
point.
argument that I never made this one, but I'm for this one also. I think there should only be the Breeders' Cup Grade 1, and maybe all the prep races for the Kentucky Derby Series, none of them should be Grade 1s.
There was a lot of chatter about
That's
that yesterday,
one that I'm on
and
board
I've heard
with.
that before. I'm
and
not
that
sure.
gets to the White Albert. It's like,
I'm not sure I totally buy into that, just because each race should be kind of judged on itself and the fields they tend to get. I understand it. I don't have a
the
real
idea
argument
that I like
against it.
is, as you're preparing, you're seeking. You're not like
Yeah,
if
I mean, I get it, and I
if
don't
I
have a big-
detach the White Barrio has, to me, not displayed he's a Grade 1 runner. He is a Grade 1 winner, but to me,
And that was, I said there were three in the Cigar
Yeah.
Milo, Zandon and
Right.
White Barrio, who were prep winners,
Right.
Florida Derby and the Bluegrass.
Yeah, so it's-
so
and to me, Mind Control is the only one that would pass my litmus test because he's done it. Whereas Zandon, we're still waiting. And his poor performance in the Cigar Mile kind of reiterates the fact that, and I've said this before, and this goes back to when the Hall of Fame ballots come out and people start talking about Grade 1 winners, and I use this example all the time because Harvard de Grasse, she's going to get in, and Blind Luck is not going to get in. And Blind Luck beat Harvard de Grasse in the Del Cap when they were both older horses. And the Del Cap had been downgraded to a Grade 2. Anytime that Harvard de Grasse and Blind Luck raced each other, that's a Grade 1 race. That being said, that would make Blind Luck the only multiple Grade 1 winner as a juvenile, as a 3-year-old, and as an older horse not in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to tell you something. It's a very small group of horses. I could give our audience a week, and I don't think they could give me every single one that has done that. It's a smaller, everyone would come up with, by the way, Seattle Slew is not in that group. Secretariat is not in that group. It's a very small group, and they're all in the Hall of Fame except 2, and Blind Luck should be credited with winning 2 Grade 1s as a 4-year-old because she won the Del Cap, which did Bozos, made a Grade 2, but how can that not be a Grade 1? You have the 3-year-old reigning champion.
And for people who aren't familiar, or people who maybe knew, the grades are given obviously before the races are run. So, and it's based on whatever the last 5 years or the last few years.
It's what they say, but that's not stood up
Yeah,
to scrutiny when
no,
I've looked at when they talk about field size for the last 5 years. And I've always said that it became, I remember when Mark and Mike were doing the show, there was talk about revisiting the grading after the fact. I'd be for that too.
Yeah, no,
I'd be for that
to
too.
me is a blockbuster idea, but you get pushback from that because connections, owners, breeders, and the Grade
Yeah, but
Stakes Committee
it's just for those people.
is an organization of the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association, and they want to know before they go, hey, I'm getting black type with a Grade 1. They want to know beforehand.
And I agree with that. And I do think if the number of opportunities were more in line with the number of thoroughbreds, it would stand up. When I draconianly chop them up and you go to that Grade 1, I'm betting it's going to stand up as a Grade 1 after. But I have too many Grade 1s.
Yeah, which logically fits because now you've got a weekend where on Saturday there's a Grade 1 for this division over here. Oh, but there's a Grade 1 for this division over here, either the same day or next week as well, and it gets diluted and watered down. So I think you're absolutely right. If it got cut down, you would probably, they would stand up a little more,
And
just naturally.
For the record, this is an us against them thing because the way it is exactly the way the owners and breeders want it. They've created a game for themselves. And I've said this, I would love to be a heckler at auction sales when they start rattling off the things. Did you see the race? Won a Grade 1 at 2 years old. Did you see the race? Andy Shirley makes a great point. I like it.
Heckle at the auction.
Oh, because
That
it's
would
awful.
That would be great.
When
that would
they
add
read
some
it
real
off, I'm like,
entertainment value.
Who spends 6 figures on a horse that doesn't realize how dumb the auctioneer is by what they're saying? And they didn't really make the best thing. They took the American Oaks off the turf last year and left it a grade 1. So I can't wait for a foal out of that mare to drop, and the guy with that British accent will say, and the grade 1 winner, I'd be like, are you a clown? Are you really a goofball? But it's their thing, and that's why they went crazy. Fleet Alex's year. Oh my goodness, I need a chance to run for a grade 2 at Saratoga. You can't take it away. Why? There's only 5 of you in here. So, last thing. Did you vote for maximum security? And do you want? Your
I don't
vote
remember.
back?
You were talking about it, and I don't remember if I did or
Brian
not.
did. And I said I said to him at the time, you're gonna regret this. You're gonna regret this. Now because you follow the industry and people and everything. Is there any talk about taking it back?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Think he'll go anywhere?
I don't know.
I hope he
does. I would say probably not, but
he admitted to enhancing the ability.
And subsequently, Gary and Mary West said, we
purse.
support the purse going, which then subsequently, with the authorities in Saudi Arabia saying we're still thinking about it. Once the owner says that, aren't you given the green light to just?
I doubt they need the money, but who couldn't use $10 million? What is Midnight Bisou's people sitting there going, when do we get paid? It's become almost comical because, and I haven't looked to see, somebody's getting Midnight Bisou's money, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering how it's going to play out. But I am interested to see how whomever is in charge of the Eclipse, because I think that they should pull it. Because it would set a precedent that I'm very comfortable with, and I don't think they should re-award it. I think it should be vacant, and that should just be it. But he can't be the 3-year-old male champion. It just cannot stand. So
Speaking of that, got my Eclipse package a couple days ago.
Any hand wringing?
I have not really looked yet because I legitimately think on the 3-year-old side I got to wait for the Malibu. Although I even if Taba wins, I think it's still probably Epicenter, but I will.
I'm told that they make the announcement to wait for the 3 grade 1s at Sandy. My thought is, why don't you just send out the ballots after the races? Then I don't have to wait. Mm-hmm. But are most of them settled law, as it were? Is there any?
Yeah.
I don't think there's much.
Because there's in most of the divisions, there's nothing to.
Now here's the one that I think I'm wrong on. I think Warlike Goddess is a layup for the Philly and Merrow turf. And I hear people discussing, and she's not in the discussion. I thought she's a layup. I think she's the greatest.
And frankly, some people have also tossed out. It's not going to, but tossed out Modern Games on the 3-year-old side.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
He's the 3-year-old champ.
So that's.
But he stands up even to your scrutiny. Your scrutiny used to be 2 races, right?
Yeah, no.
So he stands up.
Yeah.
He stands up. I think he is the 3-year-old champ.
Epicenter. Well, now maybe there is a more of a look.
Well, the thing is, you have to decide is I know people don't. He won the Breeders' Cup Mile. Yeah. He won the Woodbine Mile.
No, I don't have it.
Yeah,
it wasn't when people started bringing that up.
Epicenter's going to crush.
Yeah, when people brought that up, it was not like, oh, never. I mean, I think he's legitimately in the conversation.
So apparently, it's not the quiet time of year for thoroughbred racing, but always good to. I mean, it's we'll see. We'll see. We have the Big A, which is running this weekend. Then a little gap. They are gonna. I was looking at this. They got 10 in today. They are gonna move it along today because we are a couple days away from the shortest amount of sunlight day. But they got 10 in today, so they're gonna start at 11:50. Seth's Racing Across America is gonna be truncated down to 30 minutes today to make way for Naira. Seth is gonna do his second favorite track, or his old haunt of Tampa Bay Downs later. But we'll take a quick break, or we go to Aqueduct. What is that?
We'll pop. We'll start.
We'll start.
But if you're ready to roll,
I am ready to roll.
All right. Opener at Aqueduct today. We are looking at maiden 20 claimers, and they will travel the 1-turn mile.
Now, I only root for competitive races. That's really about all I want. And I think on paper, this meets that bar easily. In addition, I could barely make heads or tails of how I'm projecting really almost anybody in this field is going to run today. Some have tried the halfway house of the maiden 40s. Now they're going down to the bottom 20s. Remember, we have the 2 levels for a tag after maiden special weights. We have some that have produced some turf numbers, which typically can never be god awful. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a -0 for a turf race, but I've seen them on dirt races. I've seen 10s, 12s, 17s, but you don't usually see much lower than like 30 or 40 for a turf race. You also, but turf racing, the numbers, etc. My point is, this was incredibly wide open. I mean, if you can trust North Pole, who was going to the post for the 16th time, has hit the board in 11, God bless. And maybe he's the horse to beat in here, but not for me. 9-8, and my rule of thumb to the audience is that when you look at races for a while and it doesn't pop up, you can't land on the short price horses. I mean, if you're betting the morning line favorite, which is 3, Tiger Town Boy, as Seth would point out, you're purely doing it over the buyer speed figures. This horse has been beaten nearly a dozen lengths in both starts, drops in for a tag. He's by curling. I do think the race runs between them, but no. Sean the Hammer gets my top pick. Stretches out to a mile from the outside. That is a question mark for me. But boy, I just think, at the top of the stretch, we are going to be in this race at a price. For a second, I do have North Pole, who has consistently run fast enough to win this race, and then growth mindset for Danny Gargan. They add blinkers. This horse, to me, is the danger. Tiger Town Boy, I think you like him because of the buyers, and then that's wishful thinking after that. 9-8 for me, an extraordinarily difficult opener.
Well, let me ask you, there's one horse in that opener.
Sure.
There's a couple coming up in the second race. Do you have a tried and true rule, or is it horse by horse? Because I've been talking about it for maybe a month now.
Okay.
These horses that are turf horses, but it's that time of year where let's do the experiment, see if we have a horse we can keep running on dirt. And so they have great turf form, or not great, but turf form that kind of stands out in and amongst the field this time of year on the dirt, but it's turf form and turf numbers. I would say most of the time I'm against this time of year doing the experiment, but occasionally there'll be a race where I just think maybe this is the best horse in the race. So, but I would say I have a rule. Most of the time I'm against those types.
My two thoughts are this. One is, like, say Christophe Clement, who has the ability to go to South Florida and run some turf horses. So if he chooses not to, I give it a second look. If it's a group that I know is kind of set, I'll say set instead of stuck here,
New York
I'm
based.
like, you got no choice. And thirdly, as you know with me mostly, it depends on the price. And you have said something for years that unbelievably, it's unbelievable that you were right and that it's true. It's unbelievable that people do this. Is the buyer speed figures it seems like it doesn't matter that they were
sometimes
earned on
you
the
look
turf,
at the board
and you're like, well, maybe they'll win, maybe that's fine, but not at that price. They got a 65 on the turf,
But the kicker with some of those types, they've got great buyer numbers on turf that tower over the field. But you look down at the bottom, and there'll be 2 dirt races right at the bottom that are horrible.
Yes.
And you think, why is this horse 9-5? What are these people looking at?
And what I'm saying is that's where you have been so right. The absolute power of these buyer speed figures.
But to me, that adds a whole other layer to the handicapping puzzle for probably a month and a half or 2 months this time of year.
Well, there's a race. Like you said, there's a race coming up where you're like, there's 4 horses in it. You're like, wrong surface.
Yeah. Second race today, allowance non-winners of 1 other than 3/4 of a mile.
3-2-6 Digital Future gets my top pick for Ray Handel going out off of a victory in a starter allowance. That, as for me, has become a nice medium step into the A, other than when you are looking to find, water seeking its own level. The starter allowance, which, boy, I'll tell you, I don't think we had them until about maybe 5-7 years ago. I mean, starter allowance weren't a condition in my 20s, 30s, or even 40s in New York. It was at other places. But Handsome Cat, popular in the claiming box, is my second pick. David Jacobson, who clearly has his sea legs back in the game. This runner won at Penn National. Javier Castellano takes the mount. And then number 6 for Linda Rice, second off the claim. 3-2-6. Second half of the early double.
You mentioned the starter allowances. I'm trying to bring it up here because I
Yes.
don't know the exact number. But did you see the horse Beverly Park who won? It was either
12th
the
or
13th,
27th.
13th. I thought it was 13th or the 14th
That's it.
this year. So far this year, 29 starts, 14 wins. But at that bottom, that 5,000 starter level, which when horses do these kind of streaks, that's normally they'll have been at the bottom claiming level, and then they'll have
Got an
a
edge.
year or maybe 2 where they can pop into these and rip off 14 wins in a season.
And I think Jay Priven pointed out that there's probably a person out there who seemingly consistently has voted Horse of the Year as the horse who's won the most races. That's apparently their criteria. And remember, as Mike Veach, our colleague, used to say, there is no criteria.
Yeah, well, they do make a note now in the cover letter they give you about conflicts of interest, which I think is good because over the years there've been maybe a couple of questionable things there. But yeah, it's definitely up to the voter for the most part. Third race today is State Bred Stakes action, the Bay Ridge, $100,000 up for grabs for the Fillies and Mayors going a mile.
Like, here's a question. How is the 1 4-1?
Yeah.
Hall of Fame trainer, but I'm sure he knows this is a dirt race, for Spongy, who's an accomplished turf runner. Well, we're going to find out at a mile, not on my dime. I'm 365, as you see in here. I completely believe this race goes through the 6. Let Her Inspire You. Coming off of the Empire Distaff winner, beating Olders as a 3-year-old. So know it all. Audrey is my upset pick in here for Oscar Barrera III. Horse has a strong affinity for Aqueduct Racetrack. 1 going the mile on the front end. I have to say that it is my opinion. If this buyer thing and last recency buyer bias exists, how about this? Know It All Audrey runs an 86 in a other than. Let Her Inspire You runs an 88 in the Empire Classic. 1 is 4-5 and 1 is 9-2. And then I have Let Her Inspire You, who is really trying to make it. Let's see, is that 1, 2, 3, 4? Well, it's 4 for 6, but it's probably about 8 feet away from being 6 in a row, going for 7. Is the horse to beat. Jose Lascano was aboard 2 races back. And then for third, Seth, I almost put this horse on top, and my sisters think it's crazy. Well, if you almost put it on top, why did you put it second? But I put Valentine, in third. I just think the distance of ground will help. And I knew that there was, well, I know a lot of people liked this horse early in the spring last year, and it obviously went south in the Kentucky Oaks, but this is clearly, I think, where she more belongs. 3-6-5, and I think a nice addition.
Yeah, the last couple of races for Venti Valentine.
No, you think
head scratchers.
Yeah, you're just thinking, you hope now you get her back. And
but I think she was a New York bred champion last.
Well, she had to be the 2-year-old champion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And you always wonder, like, they don't write about this, but you're like, that Kentucky Oaks might derail her for like a year. Like she was okay. You were going to do okay with her.
Fourth race at Aqueduct, one of those starter
Yes.
allowance races. 6.5 furlongs is the distance.
281, True Empress gets my top pick. One of my more preferred plays of the day. 2 races back, a nice effort going 6.5, which we're going today. For second, St. Arrow's Girl goes out for Tom Morley off the $50,000 claim. His horse ran on Black Friday. Black Friday in a strong effort. And for third, from the rail, number 1, Surcharge. First off the $40,000 claim. That was a victory in a 2L down at Keeneland. 281.
Fifth race this afternoon, allowance non-winners of one other than 6 furlongs.
7-6-3, 12th man. 12th man. Michelle Nevin's runner, 1 start since February, no starts since May, but this horse has run well off the bench before, and I've said it before. I mean, heck, this doesn't even qualify as one of those ridiculously long layouts, but Michelle Nevin going very well here. Castellano stays aboard. Rode this horse in May. I'm on the outside. I have Sheriff Bianco, who the race goes through, right inside of me, coming off of a huge victory the week before Thanksgiving. And for third, number 3, King Angelo, who I think they entered thinking this would be an off-the-turf race. So we'll see in here. Horse has good early speed on the turf, has shown it on the dirt going back to December of 20, 7-6-3, 6-1. Sharp barn. Be interested to see how they bet the turf sprinter.
Sheriff Bianco, and you talk often about the trainers who get on those hot streaks, and Linda Rice, Sheriff Bianco's trainer, currently on one of those hot streaks.
It's not my son. I mean, I don't remember people have talked about, but I don't think it's talked about enough as a function of how important I think it is. Now, maybe I'm biased because it's kind of like a little kernel of mine that obviously I think is important, but I think it's actually very important. I think if you have the discussion with people that play it, they would all kind of go, you know, it does kind of work out that way.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not, you're not 14% from January to December. You're not even close to that. And
I always say, and people can check it out with Oaklawn currently, but start of the meet, kind of see who gets off to a good start. And that won't continue the whole meet.
No.
There'll be other trainers who typically do well at Oaklawn who maybe take a month to get going, but the beginning of the meet, there's usually some human connections to kind of get off to a good start of the meet. And they're worth watching for the first
For
month.
the year-end stats, it's going to be hard for Rudy. What do you go, like 2 for 90 at Saratoga?
That sounds right.
It's going to be hard to dig out from 2 for 90. So it's going to have an effect for the whole year. And I don't expect the forum to do it. And as you know, Brian once asked me about how I collect stats, you know, my thoughts on how public they are now. I'm like, well, obviously it took away some of the edge, but you know, you almost think like, could there be a 21-day stat for trainers?
That would
Something
be
like that.
interesting. Yeah. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, more Aqueduct a little bit later on Tampa Bay Downs. Stay tuned.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player? To have a better knowledge of the game? To be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report on Saturday, December 17th. Looking at the action at Aqueduct this afternoon. Again, a little bit later on, Tampa Bay Downs. Seth, Merrow, Anthony Mormino. Let's jump into the 6th. Yes. Maiden Specials, 2-year-olds going a mile. I'm taking a shot here with the number 9, and I'm curious to see if that morning line holds up. This is a sibling to West Coast. Now, the first start, that maybe validates that morning line, but I'm going to roll the dice a little bit on the 9 in here. I think it's a fun race.
And I will say one thing I am a big believer in, Seth's number 9, was 2-1 on debut. I'm very forgiving if you get a reasonable price in the second one because obviously the horse was live. I thought it was just the pedigree of West Coast, but maybe it was. And it just didn't work out at all. It was a disaster. But if you're going to give me 15-1 the second time, I'm willing to find out that this horse was live and it didn't work out. So I follow along. 6-2-7 for me, Slip Mahoney. I like the debut. Moderately bet at 5-1, comes back with Dylan Davis, the offspring of Arrogate, makes the second career start, and I'm on board. For second, number 2, Summer Cause, Christophe Clement's runner, ran much better than odds in debut. This is a complete setup for me in the less well angle, and they come back 1/5, 1/6 the price, and he doesn't repeat the 75 buyer speed figure. And for third, the first that I was looking at, you talk about odds holding up, a nearly $1 million purchase, Abstract, 10-1 on the morning line, late in the year for Pletcher and Rapoli. I'll take that, 6-2-7.
Seventh race this afternoon, New York Stallion Series. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah, all the maidens.
500,000 up for grabs. 2-year-old fillies going 7.
And 6 of the 11 are maidens, 2-1-5. Clover Street, Mark Henning's runner, adds blinkers in the third career start. We love Mark, and I don't say this too often, but we love him on the program. He's a great person, and it's always. If you followed him on Twitter through the years, obviously their dog Levi was very important and went over the Rainbow Bridge, and I know how much he meant to the family and how much Mark means to our program. And I think this horse is absolutely live. One of the maidens, but has hit the board in both of them. They add blinkers. I'm down the road with Clover Street for second. Number 1, Le Bon Temps, going out for Mike Baker. This is a horse that I liked at Saratoga coming out of Churchill Downs. We caught Slop. It didn't work out. But the maid of the miss, baby, at $29. And for third, number 5, Bustin' Hot, another one of the maidens, 2-1-5 in the Stallion Series.
More stakes action this afternoon. Race number 8. It's the Alex Robb, $100,000 for 3-year-olds and up, going the 1-turn mile.
6-5-1 for me, and Seafoam coming off of a decent effort going the 9 furlongs, 2 turns in the Empire Classic, but gets back to going 1 turn. I think that there will be a sharp foundation in this runner. Ran in this race last year, scored a victory in the mud on New Year's Eve. For second, number 5, Mike Maker's runner, just got beat in the Open Company Discovery as the 2-1 favorite. For third, Market Alert. Rob Atras sends out this runner, 6-5-1.
This is kind of an intriguing race.
Absolutely. Now, how about yesterday? We had 2 winning favorites and 3 horses paying the $30 mutual in New York.
Which leads to, I think, $84,000 in the pick 6, the $84,000 carryover.
Nobody had the Peter Chin, Edmund Pringle in the mix, but you don't see that too often. 3 horses in the $30 and only 2 favorites.
Ninth race, again, New York Stallion Series, $500,000 up for grabs. This one, 2-year-olds going 7.
Boy, I'm 10-8-2 here, and number 10 is Laurel Valley for Todd Pletcher. How about this workout on October 15th? 58-2, breezy from the gate. Just off that alone, how can we be 8-1? I'm fine with the offspring of Low Band. For second, number 8, Lifetime of Chance. Linda Rice's runner, never off the board, making the 3rd career start. And for second, Roddy and Mary Valenti's Bustino Santino, 10-8-2. So Todd Pletcher has 2 horses, and we've said it before. I mean, David Aragona is about as sharp as you get. So 10-1 and 8-1. One of Todd Pletcher's runner is about $1 million, and the other one, Blaze, 58 and change. So
wouldn't be a bad way to start the career. The maiden debut victory for $500,000. That would certainly be a bonus. I'm curious to see where you went here. At top of the page, I have written UGG. This is a rough group in the 10th and final.
Yeah.
State-bred maiden claimers going 6.
The first and the 10th had a lot in common. And my, you can see, for me up there, it should be 5, 1A, and 6. I'm hoping that's what Dino will roll up here in a second because, I'm 12-1 in the morning line. It's just, it's you get through this with a pick six, more power to you. But for me, Saratoga Banker, and I have to just say it's a fly. It's a flyer for me. We're adding blinkers. An Offspring Essential Banker had a winner yesterday. Very underrated stallion, son of Spicetown. Just looking at the 7 furlong race, second career start, holding on to that as we shorten up to 6. Part of the entry right next door, 1A, Mr. MCRR. Rudy's horse drops down to 25 after trying 43 times in a row. And then number 6, Jim Ryerson's runner, drops down after trying 40 for the first time. 5, 1A, 6. In the finale, scheduled to go off at 4 o'clock.
And I'm looking here. Yeah, your top pick, trained by Chad Summers, who, of course, trained Mind Your Biscuits. And
Grade
Mind
1
Your
winner.
Biscuits, yeah, had a nice winner in Japan the other day that potentially could head to the Derby off of that. So we'll see. Kind of.
They'll all be in the pool after Striker Rich won. They'll be looking. Nobody's an outsider.
All right, we'll take another break. When we come back, Tampa Bay down. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside threat. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Having trouble finding us? It's actually quite simple. Whether online or on your TV, it's never been easier to watch and wager on championship horse racing with Capital OTB. Simply log on to capitalotbbet.com. There you can watch our morning shows, live stream races, and wager on our state-of-the-art wagering platform. You can also watch from the comfort of your home on Spectrum Cable Channel 1250 or Fios Channel 467. And win more with Capital OTB.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Handicappers Report. We now turn our attention to what hopefully will be sunny and warm Oldsmar, Florida, Tampa Bay.
Live
Downs.
vicariously.
I'm telling you, Dino was asking, directing the show this morning, I was asking me if I'd ever been there. I said no, but I'm trying to knock down the big 3 this year, the Tampa and the Oakland and the
bring your
Fairgrounds.
clubs. There's a golf range
Absolutely.
right next
Me,
door.
have clubs will travel. All right, Tampa Bay Downs, their opener through the trees. I don't know what type of trees they are, but I always love the 7 furlong races at Tampa. They got those trees at the start. Claimer's in for 62.50.
4, 2, 6, and 3. Al Mashriq on top. Camacho on board. This horse coming over from Gulfstream, facing similar level over there, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a venue class move. Comes off a nice win at this level. Again, cross state, in good form. Camacho on board. I'll tilt in that direction. Odds on. Class and talent-wise, I think these two are pretty close. We'll see how they shake out odds-wise. If you're getting a little more value here, odds on, certainly worth taking a look at. Certainly to kick off a pick 5, perhaps. Hasn't been seen since early October at Delaware. Again, facing similar up there. And the Delaware to Tampa move, I think, is pretty much of a lateral kind of a move. Beaten favorite in that latest. So comes in, I think, very competitive in here. An Ocean Ride, the number 6. Came from Gulfstream to Tampa last time and ran pretty well. So another one I think stacks up. Odds-wise on the morning line, these guys are all in the same ballpark. If they start to separate when the real betting begins, again, talent-wise, I think they're all pretty similar. So we'll see how things work out when the betting public kicks in. 4, 2, 6, and 3 for me.
On to the second race, mile 16th. Optional claimer, classified allowance.
Big favorite in here is going to be Never Surprised, coming cross-state for Todd Pletcher. Got scratched I would say Scratch was on the AE list the other day. Didn't make it in, but probably would have been scratched anyway because I think it was an off-the-turf event that day. That one with the Glass and Pletcher and whatnot, the one to beat, but I'm going to go 5, 4, 6, and 1. I'm going to put Dreams of Tomorrow on top. This one in the barn of Reeve McGahee, previously trained by his father, Shug, and comes down from New York. I think is, fairly comparable talent-wise to Never Surprised, but also clearly has some recency compared to that one. Comes in from some good workouts over at Gulfstream. I think this horse is very, very playable in here and likely to be decent odds, given that Never Surprised will take all kinds of action. Never Surprised, steady string of stakes tries underneath, and most of them have been pretty good in 9 starts, 4 wins, 4 seconds. So Never Surprised the one to beat, but having not been seen since March, I'll take a little pop against. And Drama Chorus in the 3rd spot, comes in from Canterbury, but comes in some pretty good form. 4 exacta finishes and 6 starts this year, including the latest effort, which is a win at Canterbury. However, it was September 7th, so there's a little bit of a layoff to overcome. Second at Tampa, 5, 4, 6, and 1.
It'll always, for me, I think be easy to know if everybody says, how old is Reeve? It'll always be easy, because I think his mother was the exercise rider and pregnant for Easy Goer.
Oh.
So I'm guessing he was born in 1990, so he's 30 years old. I think that stands up.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly,
Yeah, I think Reeve is
the math is right there.
It is. On to the 3rd race. You gotta love these 50-cent pick 3s, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Starter allowance, optional claimers going 6.
And even a pick 3, 50-cent pick 3, you get a nice price in the mix. If you can get a couple in, and you beat a short-priced favorite, they can pay all right as well. 2, 5, 6, and 1. Astonishing Annabelle. This will not be a short price I'm willing to beat. Goes out for a trainer who is having a very good meet. Comes off a nice win against very similar. This is one of those I talk about quite often. Why not right back? Won a very similar race last time and did it in a fashion that matches up well with this field. I'll look for this one to come right back and do it again. Belmar Summer tried Tampa last time, coming down from the Mid-Atlantic, Monmouth, and Delaware, and ran fourth behind the top pick. But this is a quirky track. Some horses will take a start or two to figure it out, so we'll look for this one to build off of that. And Flag Woman, I debated putting Flag Woman on top, being lightly raced and having won with a much improved effort in the second start, with a number that isn't that far off of the top pick, but did it against Maiden Claimer, so I wasn't totally convinced how this one was going to class up with this bunch this afternoon. But I think Flag Woman is intriguing with only the 2 starts and the nice improvement start 1 to start 2 under the belt so far. 3rd at Tampa, 2, 5, 6, and 1.
Back to the turf, race 4. We have 2-year-olds maiden special weights, a mile and a 16.
4, 6, 8, and 2. O'Sheik on top. It's Graham Motion, a horse that had previously been trained by Brad Cox at Indiana. The Indiana starts, they were okay. A couple of 3rd-place finishes. The numbers were okay. Just looks like this horse will match up with this bunch down here in fine fashion. So I'll tilt slightly in favor of O'Sheik. Fayette Spirit, 6-5 on the morning line. Put in a try at the Meadowlands that was, again, it was okay. Ran 4th in a field of 11. I think the morning line is based on, and probably legitimately so, this is a Chad Brown runner coming over to Tampa where he typically does very well. So I don't have any arguments there. I'm just not sure what we saw in the first time warrants 6-5, or if the betting goes lower because of Chad Brown, I'm definitely willing to kind of search around a little bit, including Summer B for my man Mike Deeney, who won at a decent price yesterday in an off-the-turfer, which was kind of fun to see. As I say, I want to say 14-1 something. A nice price yesterday for Mr. Deeney. And this one comes in with 4 starts under the belt so far. Nothing spectacular or flashy, but like the top 2, I think with this group, fits in the mix. And if you're looking for a little bit of a price, I think this horse might offer a price and be competitive. In the 4th at Tampa, 4, 6, 8, and 2.
On to the 5th, we have 2-year-old fillies, optional claimers, non-winners of one other than Racing 6.
1, 5, 6, and 2. I'll put Dreaming of Snow on top. Gerald Bennett, Camacho team up, potent team down there. Debuted at Colonial, won nicely in the debut. You always have to take notice of a horse like that. Then came down to Tampa and tried stakes action in the second career start. You know, the fourth place finish in the stake wasn't bad for only the second career start. It was a field of 5, but, you know, beaten less than 7 lengths. And again, tall ask to go from the maiden into a stakes company. So now getting back to a more proper non-winners of 1, we'll look for the rebound to a better effort. A night in Cairo in the second spot. Couple of synthetic tries, bookending a turf try. 2 of those were stakes races. The synthetics were at Presque Isle. The turf try was at Woodbine. Now goes to dirt. That has a big question mark that has to be answered. But clearly they have thought this horse is talented enough that in starts 2 and 3, they tried stakes company. And with Cairo Prince on top, I'll look for this one to be okay on the move to dirt. So morning line's 5-1. If you get some prices in here, or a price, this horse could be an interesting one to start out the late pick 5 with. A Pachanga Loca in the third spot. Hasn't been seen since early October at Indiana. That was not a good effort, but the 2 just prior to that are more what I'm looking to get towards. And with a little short layoff, maybe comes back with an improved effort coming over from Palm Meadows in the 5th at Tampa, 1, 5, 6, and 2.
And we'll take our final break when we come back. Second half of today's action from Tampa Bay Downs.
The Clubhouse Racebook is the Capital Region's new home for racing and sports. 25,000 square feet of Vegas-style action with live wagering on the best horse racing from around the world. 260 flat-screen televisions and state-of-the-art wagering terminals. So don't miss out. The fun is only minutes away at 711 Central Avenue, Albany, just off exit 5 of I-90. And don't forget, if you can't make it to the Clubhouse, you can always wager online 24/7 at capitalotb.com.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Race number 6, back to the dirt. Restricted claimers in for 8, 3L, non-winner, going 1:16 on the dirt.
3, 1, 8, and 4. Watch for the loot on top. Joe Orsino brings this one cross-state, did last time, and was a winner at the N2L level. I say it a lot. Horses will take a start or two to figure out the next level, but sometimes they get the previous level in such a fashion you think, this won't be a real obstacle, just in good form right now. But part of that is also an affinity for the track and maybe the competition over here cross-state. So watch for the loot on top. Noikataro, if I'm close to pronouncing that correctly, comes out of a 1.25 mile try at Parks last time. So take that latest buyer with maybe a grain of salt at the trip. But I think you go down the prior 3 races on the dirt, at least a couple of those are very competitive with this bunch. And so I think this horse, again, will be an okay fit. You get a nice little 6-1 there. And Mapache G in the third spot, the number 8. Class-wise, this horse, these are the kind you never quite know what to do with. Takes a drop that maybe has this one just outclassed this bunch. I mean, they're cutting the claiming price in half. Was on the turf last time, so a little turf to dirt move may help wake things up. The prior numbers match with this bunch, and again, with the class relief, this horse could easily wind up being the one to beat. In the 6th, I have it 3, 1, 8, and 4.
On to the 7th, we have 2-year-old fillies, maiden claimers in for 32 on the turf, going a mile.
Once again, I'll go with the short price in here, 5, 7, 9, and 3. Water Fight just seems to, in a relatively weak bunch, have a clear edge on this group. Sometimes the buyer numbers just do have such an edge, it's hard to get by. So I'll land on Water Fight. If you're looking for an alternative, the fresh face from Delgado, he's very good first time out of the box. You're getting 4-1 on Love Forever After. Little bit of breeding there, steady string of workouts, and again, it could be a race where a fresh face is the way to go. Number 9 showed a little punch last time on the move to turf. This is another one that maybe offers an alternative if you're looking for that. I thought Grand Spun, the Barbosa runner, took some action in debut over at Gulfstream on the synthetic. Excuse me, that was sprinting on the synthetic against maiden specials. Now stretches out turf against maiden claimers. I was kind of surprised at the 8-1 on the morning line, given that this horse, ran a well-beaten 6th in debut. I'd take the 8-1. Certainly, if it went up, I'd take an extra look at Grand Spun in here. And the 7th at Tampa, 5, 7, 9, and 3.
On to the 8th, we have 3-year-olds and up. Optionals in for 32, 2X on the dirt going 7.
2, 3, 7, and 1. Red Crescent on top. Couple of nice finished placings in the last couple over at Gulfstream, and those were off a long layoff. Laid off from January of 2021 until September of 2022. Came back, ran second. Came back, ran third. Now comes Cross State off a little bullet workout. I think this horse well spotted in here in the third start back. Bumper Due in the second slot comes off a claim for a trainer who was very good off the claim. The claimed race, certainly the number thrown there, stacks up very well with this group and the top pick. So Bumper Due playable, and King of Hollywood, nice front end score for the most part. Last time at Delaware, stretches out a little bit today, but has stretched out and run decently in the past as compared to at least the 6 furlongs last time. Interested to see what Greg Sacco is going to do down there. He's off to a pretty nice start so far at Tampa, and he has King of Hollywood in the 8th at Tampa, 2, 3, 7, and 1.
And 9 races on the card today at Tampa Bay Downs. The 9th race scheduled to go off at 4:25. This will be for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. In for 32 or a 2X going a mile on the turf.
I'm going to go out to the AE 13. So if we get a scratch, hopefully I'll get in. I have a 13, 2, 8, and 3. Charge account on top. This horse just looks to have an edge on this group if she gets in. Comes off the claim for Fausto Gutierrez. The most recent work up at Churchill Downs, so I kind of like that as well. They looked in the condition book and said, hey, let's get down to Tampa and give this group a try off the claim. So I'll put charge account on top. Again, if we get in with the scratch. Free Data in the second spot, was in an off-the-turfer at Parks last time. But the turf races just before were very good. It's Tommy Proctor now in his barn, back in his barn, let's put it that way. You go down the page, he had the horse. And again, I think this one is very playable in here with Morales on board. And Miss Michaela in the third spot. Santino on board this one, coming off a couple of nice placings up at Presque Isle most recently. Just seems to be in some good form and might be the catch me if you can horse in here. The 9th at Tampa, 13, 2, 8, and 3.
And that wraps up the look at Tampa Bay Downs. Now, are they running through Christmas week?
I think they are, yes.
All right. When are you off?
I am headed out.
There'll be no show on Christmas Eve,
Thursday, yeah. This is our last one
22nd?
until 2 weeks down the road. Last Saturday show.
So you're on the 22nd?
Taking off on the 22nd, coming back that Tuesday, so I'll be back in that following Wednesday for OTB Live, and then we'll be back here, 2 weeks from today.
On New Year's Eve. And remember, the Aqueduct will run tomorrow, and then they will run on the Friday, the day before New Year's Eve, so they'll return the 30th. That sounds right?
Yeah.
So they're December 30th.
Wasn't it Calder who used to run on Christmas?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They had, and I also think, and this is going back a long time, I think there was a time when Gulfstream Park had that, the old Gulfstream Park, when the Dons were in charge of it. And I think they ran once, and I think that was about it. But there used to be a Christmas Day handicap. What I used to remember was I always wondered how they bet the races there because I don't think the form published for Christmas Day. There would never be entries. There was only one track in North America that I knew of that ran, and I always wondered how they got the information out to the colder bettors because there's no form. And I used to think that was the only day because even as much as New York was no Palm Sunday, no Easter, there was enough other jurisdictions that did run. But I always wondered what they did for Christmas. You know, I always presumed you just went to the track and they had mimeographed PPs. I mean, today it wouldn't be an issue at all, but we confirmed, right, nobody runs anymore. Right? Nobody runs on Christmas Day. We're not doing it.
Christmas Day, for us, we will have the best of again, as we've done a number of previous years. So check us out.
See, in a few years, it'll be even easier. You just put Mike Rapoli on a loop. We'll get like 10, 12, 14 interviews with them, about 30 minutes apiece through the years. And
although actually,
the Mike Rapoli
you and I and his entourage spent much more time after the show. We were there even.
I have to tell people, people, I don't know enough, so I can't say it. But when people say like people that have really made it in life and how, I just use the word unapproachable they are. Whatever the opposite of that kind of idea is what Mike Rapoli is. He is. You talk about money not changing somebody. I didn't know him before, but he has to be the living, breathing example of it.
Did you see his picture on Twitter yesterday, the day before, the Rapoli team having their team meeting down in Orlando over the past few days?
No, I gotta find that though.
It was pretty much that group that was standing with us there.
I mean, he's great. I mean, one thing I was gonna ask him next time, and I'll slip you the question if you get him on TV by yourself, is I really have thought about this a lot. Now Mike is extremely wealthy. You can look it up on Google or you can do the math. But how Uncle Mo changed his entire thoroughbred experience.
Uncle Mo question? I thought we did have an Uncle Mo.
Well, off camera.
Oh, okay.
Because I've teased him from time to time when he'll lament how things are going south. I go, do you always look over your shoulder? How you doing, Uncle Mo? I've told this story in public. I don't think on air ever once, but I told him we've become friends, and he's great. He told me he was so bad as an owner when Uncle Mo became Uncle Mo for Todd Pletcher. Todd's like, I got to get rid of the horse. But he had, 24/7 security cameras, and there'd be rodents running around the barn, and he'd be like, Todd, there's a rat in Uncle Mo's stall. I'd be like, yeah, that happens in a barn. There's animals and everything. But apparently,
it was hilarious this year when Nest won, and you look up. I'm typically down in the winner's circle and down on the track, and I'm taking some pictures. And you look up at the grants there, the clubhouse, and his whole a whole section of box seats gets up and makes the way as the Rapoli family and friends come down to the. It was like a 3-minute procession coming down the stairs.
So in a couple of years, we'll have enough in the whatever the term is.
I wouldn't want to cut out Tommy Amos. We've got his interview too.
It's not surprising because he's done television, but he was fantastic. And the pylon cone story, you can just put that in the loop. Todd Pletcher, I thought, was great. I mean, he's a hard get, but boy, he sat down and he was not looking to get off, and he just stayed. And he's a big University of Arizona college basketball fan. So that's the annual Christmas Day loop. Dan and Dino put that together. So obviously we'll be closed. You'll be out of town. Travel safely.
Thank you.
I'll be in town, with the young one who's not too young anymore. It's completely different when they don't believe anymore.
Is he done with school already?
No, he's getting his hair cut the other day, and there was a young man probably about his age in the chair next to him who goes to a different school, let's say, and he's going to school on Friday. Anthony's school is done on Wednesday. So I gave him the old stink eye look like. So apparently, when you pay for education, you go to school less often than the young people.
Well, I was talking to my sister down in Arkansas, and her grandkids their last day was yesterday.
Anthony has school on Wednesday, which he's already bemoaning, and he realizes the kids are going to school on Friday, but no, he's got till Wednesday. He's a sophomore, moving along. But have a great Christmas, everyone. This last I'll see is Seth he stays for the, remember, truncated edition of Racing Across America. Naira has the early post. He'll be in tomorrow, and then Naira will take a little respite. So have a nice Christmas with your sister.
You too.
Dino
All the best.
and
Happy
Dan
holidays
and
to the family.
Everybody out there, be safe. Maybe the driving will get better today. We'll see you next time on New Year's Eve.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.